hands.
No, that's not jazz hands. These are jazz
Oh,
hands.
what are
Come
these?
on. You know what? I don't think that's made for family TV. I don't
Yeah,
know.
just a reminder, HCAM has started.
Yep,
All right.
I know. We're just. I am going to give this another minute or two because we have 5.
Yeah, I was just worried the public would think that it's all fun and games on the planning board, never, no stress or anything.
They're going to be knocking down our doors to run for election. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Gary. Hey, Muriel.
All right. Well, let's do
Jane?
this. We will at least. I can at least get going on our initial Zoom statement. But before we begin, it is. I'll call to order our planning board meeting at 5:31 on August 27th, 2020. As a preliminary matter, this is Gary Trendle, Planning Board Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Muriel Kramer.
Muriel Kramer here.
Jane Moran.
Jane Moran present.
Rob Benson.
Rob Benson here.
Dave Paul.
Dave Paul here.
Mary Larson Marlowe. Don't see her here. Deb Feinbrug. Don't see her either. And Sundar Sivarman. Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. Gelsich.
John Gelsich here.
Miss Pemberton.
Stephanie Pemberton here.
Mr. Paradis.
Here.
All right, thank you all. And then anticipate speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Mr. McDowell. You could probably give me a thumbs up and nod your head. All right, I'm going to assume we're good to go there. All right, well, good evening, everyone. This open meeting of the Hopkinton Planning Board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID virus, we are complying with the executive order that suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The executive order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely as long as the public body makes provisions through adequate alternative means to ensure interested members of the public are provided reasonable access to the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to the members of this body are available on the town's website via the web meeting calendar, unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. Ground rules, I think we're good there. Again, just as a reminder, any vote we take in the meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So thanks everyone for making time for an additional planning board meeting that wasn't originally on our schedule. Two things that we wanted to go through tonight. The first, and we'll actually cover the Legacy Farms Road North acceptance first, since we have both Mr. Paradise and Mr. McDowell on the line on the call. And then I do want to revisit what we do with our town meeting articles. So I've had some follow-up conversations this week. And I think that they're just, given the fluid nature of COVID, I think that it might be worth us revisiting and thinking through how we manage our own articles at town meeting a little bit differently. So like I mentioned, we'll go ahead and start with Legacy Farms Road North. John, do you want to just quickly give us an update as to why we're here and what we're here to discuss, and then then we'll hand it over to Mr. McDowell.
Sure. So the planning board is required as part of the process to give a recommendation to the select board on accepting public or private roads for public roads. And Legacy Farms Road North is on the warrant for acceptance at this town meeting. So the planning board needs to deliberate and either recommend accepting it or not for town meeting. Basically what the planning board has to do is just take a vote on that, and then we'll send a report to the select board, kind of giving a little bit more detail. Nothing that the planning board needs to worry about right now, but it's a specific process that needs to take place. And we need to get it done tonight because the select board has a meeting on Tuesday where they are going to discuss this. And so it needs to be done before that Tuesday meeting.
Thanks, John. And so what happens, just hypothetically, if this did not go through tonight, what would then happen?
So it's kind of like all the other town meeting articles. It's still going to be on the warrant. It's just going to be a different discussion that takes place with the planning board not recommending approval.
Okay, got it. All right. Thanks, John. Mr. McDowell, do you want to just give us a quick update as to where things stand?
Sure. Roy McDowell from Legacy Farms. As probably most know, we finished paving the road a while back. The landscaping, the trees, planting, et cetera, were put in very recently. We have a updated punch list from Beta, which we've been working on. We've replaced all the sidewalk signs. We're doing some clearing. We're doing some cleaning of drains, the clearing of the swale in the brook area where the bridge is. So there's a litany of things we're pecking away at. We're going to be replacing some of the ramps for the handicap ramps. Pulte is doing that because they damaged them. So we're going to go right through the entire list. We hope to have that done within the next week and a half at the latest. And we had a as-built drawing done. That was on the list. We had as-built drawings done, and we gave them to the town probably 6 or 9 months ago. But we had to update them because they did not include the finished paving or the finished elevation of the manhole covers. So we had our engineers out there yesterday, and we will have a stamped engineered drawing with finished paving, finished elevation of manhole covers, inlets, et cetera, on Monday. So I think we'll have the finished plans, we'll have the punch list completed before town meeting, and we'll get the verification with Beta. And I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So, Mr. Paradise, do you want to give us an update as far as your review goes?
So Roy is correct in, as far as I can tell, for all the things he said. So we completed an inspection on August 4th and provided that letter to the town. Our inspectors have noted that there's been activity out there since then. So I think they noted the other day that some signs were going in and stuff like that. So we presume that in due course, the rest of the items will be completed. And yeah.
Okay. So, and just to kind of confirm what Mr. McDowell was saying, you don't.
I think the biggest item that I don't know if it's happened yet is the cleaning of all the drainage structures. So
That's happening, if not later this week, first of next week.
Okay.
We're cleaning out all the manholes. We're cleaning out the swales. Some siltation, some of the end of the pipes. Those are being cleaned.
all right, so that's a big item. But
Okay. And okay. So from Phil, from your review, it sounds like you're, and again, I'm asking you to speculate on the future, but it seems very realistic that this could all be done prior to town meeting.
yeah, there is I think it could be done. You know.
Well, it's our intention to have it done.
Yes.
It's not that big a list that it can't be done. It's every day we have something going on out there, and it's just some of it's very minor, some of it's a little more work, but it's getting done.
Right.
Okay.
So I think the big thing will be giving us sufficient time to be able to make sure all the things are done.
Okay. And then I guess my other question, Phil, is when the work is done, Well, you have a chance, and I guess so, Mr. McDowell. What I'm pushing for is I just want to make sure that this is all buttoned up with a nice bow on it prior to town meeting, so that there really aren't any questions about there still being work to do. So what I'd like to see personally is that it all get wrapped up, and then we have some type of confirmation from Beta saying that everything is done. And assuming we can do that, to me, I think that makes this a pretty clean process.
That would be our intention.
Okay. So I'll open it up to the board at this point. Do people have questions for either Mr. McDowell or Mr. Paradise?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I may have missed it, but do you have a date certain that everything is going to be done, Roy?
Well, the town meeting is September 12th, correct?
Yes.
My guess is once we give Phil a call and say we'd like to meet you out there, we're going to want to walk it with him, just in case we miss something, we can take care of it immediately. So I would say a minimum a few days before to give him time, number one, to verify it. And if there's one or two things we've missed, there's enough time to finish it so he can re-verify it. So, I'm hoping, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but probably by the 8th and 9th. I'm hoping.
So if I can just follow up, I'm looking at a calendar for and seeing the 12th, and I wonder if you could target Friday the 4th or no?
Let me open a calendar.
That's next Friday.
That might be a little bit of a stretch because of the paving people. I will obviously do my best, and I'll probably know better on Monday. Hold on, let me.
What can I offer a plan?
Yes.
Sure.
So Bob, who did the original inspection, works Monday through Wednesday. So I would recommend that we have someone walk the site with him next Wednesday and see how many items there are to be completed, and then confirm that on the following Wednesday.
So that's an
At the
inspection.
latest.
That's
at
an
the latest.
inspection on the 2nd with
Right.
a follow-up at the latest on the 9th.
Yep.
So
I think
either
that-
actually Monday's Labor Day, right? So either Tuesday, the 8th, or Wednesday, the 9th.
Right.
Yeah, I would say if we could do the 2nd, knowing it's probably not going to be done, but it'll narrow the list down.
Right. Right.
Then the goal would be to have it 100% done by the 9th. I think that would be reasonable.
So if you could get as much of the sediment removed and stuff like that before the 2nd, that would be ideal, because that's the biggest item. But right.
All right. And Mr. McDowell, I hope you understand where we're coming from. I mean, I think originally this was all going to be done before the original town meeting date, correct? And I know there's still some things to do and you're up against the clock, but I'm just a little bit concerned that as annual town meeting is pushed out, that this seems to have taken longer than anybody anticipated as well. So
It did, but again, we all seem to use the reason COVID, but I will tell you, some of the contractors we were hoping to use laid off all their people, didn't bring them back. And that was a real problem for us.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think this is an achievable goal, so we're going to work very hard to get there on this.
Great.
With the intention to have it done by the 12th.
Fran, do you have a question?
Yeah, so through the chair, I mean, maybe it's back to Gary and the group. What is our course of action to have a decision this evening predicated on Mr. McDowell and his crew completing everything by the 9th, signed off by Beta, and then when we go to town meeting, that it's been supported or accepted by or approved by the planning board. And if that doesn't happen, what is the recourse that it's still going to be on the warrant, so we've got to either make a decision one way or the other.
Before you answer,
Yeah.
can I suggest something?
Please do, Mr. McDowell.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up this evening is we've got a very expensive bond that's been in place for $776,000. And I have in front of me, and I sent it to John, the letter from Beta, which broke down the cost in 2016. And if you look at a copy of that, I basically highlighted all of that as being done. So of the 776,000 bond, all of that work has been completed, except I'll say this punch list, which is probably now half of what it was a few days ago. So one of the requests we had is to ask to reduce the bond to $50,000, given the fact that we think there's about $15,000 worth of work to do. And my thought is, I'd hate to see this thing not go to town vote because we missed one or two items that we couldn't find. For some reason, John's people came out, Phil's people came out. And so you missed that, you missed this, which could be minor things. It could be a few $1,000s worth of things, which we can either, for some reason, we can't make it by the 12th, either quadruple bond it and have us finish it, or if there's time before the meeting, finish it. But I'm just concerned that if there's some minor little thing that isn't done, we don't technically have your support simply because of that one item, given the fact it was probably $1 million worth of work originally. And if it's down to $5,000 or $10,000, you don't get a vote on that. Not that I anticipate it, but my concern is if you make your vote subject to that, you give yourself no wiggle room at all.
Yeah. So I think I'd rather not merge those two together. And I think all we need to decide on tonight is whether or not we are supporting the article to accept Legacy Farms North on the for annual town meeting. Is that, John, is that correct? And I think that this is my impression anyways. I think that we can deal with the requested bond reduction as a separate item.
Yeah, so what's before the board is the acceptance vote and discussion. The bond reduction can happen even after town meeting at this point. So it doesn't have to happen before town meeting.
Yeah. Okay. And I do want to go back to Fran's question because again, I want to make sure that we understand the pathways here. So again, option one is that we can vote to recommend this article for town meeting, which is effectively giving our endorsement of support to the article when it gets discussed and voted on at town meeting. Option two is that we could vote to take no action, which does not mean that it's still on the warrant, and it is could still be discussed. It just means that we don't have a formal voice of support from the planning board. And John, I'm looking at you again. I mean, those to me are the kind of the two options here. Did I represent those the right way?
Yeah, so if I could just clarify a little bit more too, there is a current $776,000 bond that the planning board has put on this project. So if the town accepts it and things aren't done, they've got that money to use to make it right. If we reduce the bond, it still may be enough money to make it right. It's just, it doesn't need to get reduced before town meeting. There's no reason necessarily why that has to happen. So if the board is uncomfortable with the work not being done, there is money to be used to make that work right. I just want to make that clear so that it's not if the planning board votes to accept and there's work that needs to be done later, the town is kind of finding itself in a hole. There is going to be money available.
Okay. All right. So that's helpful. Thank you, John. So, and again, so that means that even if we do recommend it for approval at town meeting, then for whatever reason, if things aren't done, then there's still that bond that will help us ensure that everything is going to get finished up in the right manner.
Well, Mr. Chair, just to give you comfort on that, we're not going to default in a $776,000 bond for $10,000 worth of work.
Yep. I was thinking the exact same thing. So Any other questions or comments from the board members?
No, the only thing that I would suggest too is that we can also, if the worst happened, we could revote our position right before town meeting. But I don't expect that to be necessary. I think that there's a plan in place to finish it. Substantial progress has been made to get it across the finish line. We can, if anybody's been over there, I think that we can see that it is quite close and down to the engineer's punch list. That is beyond ours. And we do have that substantial bond, and we have a great deal of motivation to see this finished, since it was our initiative to start it. So I feel like, I'm comfortable, particularly with the plan and certainly the motivation that I'm sure that the developer has. And I know that we have a great deal of reinforcement from the voters at last town meeting. They certainly supported this idea in concept, and they want to see it get done. So I think that we're all aiming in the same direction. So I would be comfortable recommending that we vote to approve the select board's decision to accept the road. Or what's the vote we exactly need?
So it's John, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's our article. So we are recommending acceptance of Legacy
Okay.
Farms Road North.
I feel like I'm comfortable making a motion to recommend acceptance at annual town meeting.
Is there a second? And I know Deb's got a question on that, but is there a second?
Second. Rob,
Okay.
second.
Discussion. Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of it. I think it's something that needs to be done for the school children. But I do have some questions about the disassociation of the connection of Rafferty Road damage and all the construction trucks that have been going up and down towards Legacy Farms. I'm just concerned that Hopkinton is going to be taking a good chunk of that, in our road work to redo that road. And this development has so far no responsibility at all for that work. And I know it's kind of like a side note because it's not written in, from what I understand, unless Phil has something, a note somewhere in the plans that say that some associated roads are that are related to construction, the contractor is responsible for. But I just do have a concern that bond, the money that is bonded, which is only, accordingly, $10,000 to complete the work, isn't related to roads that were trucked on and brought in materials on, and which is pretty intensive considering those roads weren't developed for that type of traffic. I don't think it's a sole responsibility of Legacy Farms North, because we have the other company as well. But anyway,
Yeah.
I just thought
Okay.
it's a consideration.
Thanks,
For the
Deb.
chair, can I add on to that, please?
Go ahead, Dave.
So I have a separate concern as well, that's related to the bond. But what I'd like to suggest is, can we have a discussion after this vote related to the bond?
I don't think it's actually on our agenda.
Okay, maybe can we put it on a future agenda?
We can, and I think yes, we can.
So then Deb can talk more about her concern. I can talk about my concern.
Yeah, I guess my only caution is that I think, Deb, you make a good point, and it's something that we should be thinking about. I just am a little cautious about kind of throwing this in the mix at the 11th hour. And I totally hear you, and I'm living on a street where I see that every day. But I think that's something for us to think about, on future projects and approvals as to how we mitigate or address that. And I personally, I don't think it's something that should weigh in here, because if he's conforming to meeting all of the requirements that the town and that the planning board has set forth, then I think we need to stick to that.
Yeah, I guess I agree. I totally agree with this. And being in the 11th hour, bringing this up sort of as a separate meeting and making it the 11th hour. But I guess my question would extend to Phil. Phil, if it's okay through the chair. Phil, is there anything on the drawings that would indicate that the roads extending beyond Legacy Farms North or connecting to Legacy Farms North are part of the responsibility of the contractor?
I have not read in a decision or anything. I know for that part of the road, I believe it's from formerly called
Rafferty.
Rafferty. There was a condition that required construction of a sidewalk, which was completed. But other than that, I don't believe there was anything related to that road in the decision related to the pavement itself.
Mr.
So-
Chair, could I comment on that?
Quickly, I want to move to a vote here, but sure, if you want to, go ahead quickly.
Rafferty Road was actually in quite a bit of disrepair long before Legacy Farms was even started. The road has been really bad for a long time. It's got a very poor base under it, which makes it, you'd probably have to tear the whole road out, put in a good gravel base, which it doesn't have, and repave it. But I see that as been degrading for many, many years.
Okay. All right.
Quick process question.
Hang on. Jane had her hand up first. Go ahead, Jane.
Sure, I can kind of verify that because I've been working a lot up there in that area. And to Roy's point, most of the construction trucks, the lumber trucks, the cement trucks, come in from East Main Street up Legacy Farms North. And the most of the heavy traffic that Rafferty Road encounters, or the old Rafferty Road, is actually Tennessee Gas. And also that road has been in bad shape for a long, long time.
Okay.
So I think we better be cautious.
Yep.
Before
Yeah,
we
I would beg to differ. I would beg to
Deb,
differ with
Deb,
that, but
Deb, sorry, we're gonna move on. I think we've. Dave, did you have a process question?
Yeah, quick process question. I just want to be clear because of what John said, that we're going to vote for the approval for the support of the article in town meeting today. But there will be I just want to ask a question. There will be a second vote in the future for releasing the bond, and that will happen after town meeting. So it won't have to be last minute, our discussions. And
That's
John's
my
signing it.
understanding. John?
Yep. Yeah, so yeah, I can answer that. Yep, there's going to be another vote to reduce the bond or to eliminate the bond at a future meeting. So there's two parts of this, right? To accept a street, you need to have the final subdivision approval, which is the clearing of the bond, and there's the acceptance at town meeting. So we're doing the accept. Usually goes the other way. Usually goes to planning board first, and then once everything's done, goes to town meeting. We're doing this backwards. It's going to town meeting first to get accepted, and then planning board is going to vote at a later time to reduce the bond or eliminate the bond.
So I just want to reiterate my suggestion, and it sounded like it was a good idea to talk further detail at a future meeting.
Yep. Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. So no further discussion. We'll move to the roll call vote. Gary Trenzel, yes. Dave Paul?
Dave Paul, yes.
Jane Moran?
Maureen, yes.
Fran DeYoung? You're on mute, Fran? You're on mute, Fran.
Randy Young, yes.
Rob
New
Benson?
guy.
Rob Benson, yes.
Deb Feinberg?
Jeff Feinberg, yes.
Muriel Kramer?
Muriel Kramer, yes.
And I believe that is Mary Larson Marlowe down there at the calling in.
Yes, it is. Mary Larson Marlowe, yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. McDowell, thank you. Appreciate you coming in on short notice.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to seeing it all done.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so our second agenda item tonight is back to our town meeting articles. And I think we had some good, healthy discussion here at the last meeting. I've also had some follow-up conversations, and I've gotten some, both with, I talked to the fire chief at length actually earlier today, just to try and understand how they're approaching town meeting from a public safety perspective. And then I also got an update on the town meeting warrant itself, which the select board voted on Tuesday night. And so just to fill you in, the original warrant was 56 articles. It is now down to 22 articles. So I think that's 34 articles have been withdrawn from the various sponsors. Of those 22 that are left, 8 of them are the planning board. So those are the 7 that we discussed last week, and then actually Legacy Road North street acceptance is actually one of ours as well. And to me, when I heard those numbers, it just kind of put into perspective how hard the broader town is working to simplify this and to try to reduce risk. You know, and it's a hard one because I think that everything, you know, just even meeting, there's risk in it in itself. But you know, the Chief Slammon's comments were really around how, number one, you know, the Commonwealth does have restrictions on the number of people that can meet outdoors. There is an exception process to allow for that, and the town recognizes that town meeting is an important mechanism to allow the town to move forward. That being said, they really want to work to make sure that we are doing everything we can to minimize that risk. And that means keeping distance between people. You know, every time someone speaks or is at a mic, there's some risk of, you know, of virus being spread. As there's a lot of people coming, then that forces people to be more spread out, and there's other challenges associated with that. And so I just wanted to revisit it because I don't know if we fully thought about this through the public safety lens, at least in the right way, when we discussed it last. And I also thought that, you know, just the stats on how many articles have been withdrawn, and how many of those that are remaining are ours. Not to say that there isn't some rationale for those to be there, but you know, all the articles in town meeting have some purpose to be there, and I think other groups have been much more. I'm not going to say
Flexible.
willing, but much more, yeah, just much more. What'd you say, Dave?
Flexible.
Yeah, much more flexible in how they approach it. So I'm going to stop there, but I just am going to open it up to the group here to see if other folks have thoughts, or you know, as they've had time to reflect and think about this and think about, you know, town meeting, if they have other thoughts on what makes sense. Rob, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair. So I've thought a lot about this. I was probably more outspoken than I needed to be last meeting, but the public safety aspect of it, I don't think I feel comfortable going to town meeting, and I'm not probably in the high risk range. So I kind of have reconsidered my thought process, and I don't think any of the 7 articles we pushed forward to town meeting, I'm not in favor, basically because I'm not in favor of myself going to town meeting and putting myself at risk. So that's my stance right now. Is I don't think I'd go to town meeting because of the safety risk.
Okay, Muriel.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I actually entered that discussion in that meeting intending to vote to postpone them all. And the conversation started to hold on to the one that's going to bring probably the most people forward. And so then I ended up making a decision that if we were going to do that one, we'd do the easier ones too and get them done. That was my rationale and my thinking. But honestly, there is no business before us except for Legacy Farms North that has any aspect of public safety involved. And I think that we have to look at it through a public safety lens first. I hadn't even thought about my own participation at town meeting, but have given a lot of thought to, you know, what absolutely has to be done in September to keep, you know, the town functioning and keep people working and to attend to public safety issues. And everything else really doesn't rise. So I was almost immediately wishing that I personally had voted it differently and thought about it differently at that meeting. So I would favor reopening the discussion.
Any other thoughts?
I think Bren was next.
Yeah, through the chair, a couple thoughts, and probably echoes a little bit what I've heard from both Rob and Muriel. You know, I don't know if the board had considered or prioritized, you know, which of these are quote unquote mission critical that would really need to be, you know, decided at town meeting. And if the group felt that there was nothing, I'm kind of hearing that a little bit, that there's nothing out there that's mission critical that would need to be decided upon at town meeting, then I think the discussion or decision to open the discussion and to potentially vote it a little bit differently, I would be in favor of that because of some of the concerns that were echoed earlier, and just having, you know, seen how these things can manifest themselves in the past, and given the fact that the optics just don't look good when you've got over almost a third of the warrants still remaining, I think it would be appropriate for the planning board to do their part as well.
And I know Jane's been quietly raising her hand. One point that I should add is that the warrant is finalized. So we are no longer in a position where we can remove articles or withdraw articles from the warrant. But what we can do is we can recommend that we take no action. And this hasn't been finalized yet, but you know, we're working through the processes to see how those motions in which their boards recommended no action as to how those would be managed. They could be put into a consent agenda and then the consent agenda voted on altogether. I don't have details on that yet, but should have more details on that tomorrow. But regardless, the discussion for us tonight is not whether we're going to withdraw them, it's whether we're going to recommend no action on them. Jane.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity for the planning board to partner with our other town boards, our select board, our school committee, who took about 3 seconds to vote to unanimously just wait until the next town opportunity to meet. So I think everyone has public safety in mind, and I think that I'm glad to hear the conversation tonight to reconsider, and I would make that motion, Gary.
Okay. So I'm sorry, just from a process perspective. So what I was going to propose is that we actually go through these one at a time. And I guess my thought is that in the first time around, we voted on the solar overlay, and then we grouped the rest of them in together. And I was trying to be efficient, but I think that this time around it might be a little bit more straightforward if we just vote on each of them individually. I realize it takes a little bit more time, but
Can I second Jane's motion just so?
Yeah, and I want discussion as well, please.
Sorry. So what is, Jane? Can you clarify what is the motion that you're moving?
That we, I'm sorry, I forgot what you said. That we just postpone the articles
Move no action.
with no action. Thank you, Muriel.
Okay, all of them together you're proposing?
Yes.
Okay. And Muriel, you want to second that?
I will.
Okay.
Point of clarification, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
When you say all the articles, not including.
I don't want you to start doing this over.
Not including the.
Legacy Farms.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, and just on that point, just to formalize this, should we go through the articles themselves, John, just to list them out?
Sure.
And I apologize. I was feverishly looking for my notes from the last meeting, which I seem to have
I can read
put in the
through. I
wrong
have them.
file here. Okay.
Yeah. So the first one is amend Article what is that, 19,
19.
non-conforming lots, uses and structures, section 210-128 to allow for a waiver issued by the zoning enforcement officer for certain uses that do not alter the footprint or overall height of a pre-existing non-conforming structure. Modify Article 16, wireless telecommunications facilities in order to bring the regulations current with federal wireless telecommunications regulations. Modify Article 18, supplementary regulations, Section 210-126 to remove the requirement that occupants of accessory dwelling units be family related by blood, marriage, or adoption, to remove the requirement for an interior connection, and to remove the age-restricted provision. Modify Article 6A, Downtown Business District, Section 210-20.3 to remove car washes as a use allowed by special permit. Amend Article 8A, Industrial B District, Section 210-37.9 to correct the numbering so as to be consistent with the rest of the zoning bylaw. Amend Article 27, Signs, Section 210-179, Temporary Signs, to allow for additional temporary signage for businesses determined to be affected by construction within a public right-of-way, and establish the commercial solar photovoltaic overlay district, and amend the zoning map to place all or a portion of the indicated parcels within the commercial solar photovoltaic overlay district.
Thank you, John. All right, so discussion. Dave, go ahead.
Yes, so 2 points I wanted to make. Just trying to get my thought here for a minute. Oh, 1 point I wanted to make to Fran's point. At the last discussion, I did make a point that in my opinion, the solar was the only article that I thought was time sensitive. So I was okay with postponing whatever the other 5 articles. Since then, we've learned one more article, and I think that is also time sensitive. First of all, I want to explain why I think the 2 articles are time sensitive. The first one with the solar, as we discussed in the past, this has been going on for a while, and at any point in time, it could be a new neighborhood that is in jeopardy of facing this issue that we've seen for 3 other solar farms before. We've heard from the Lumber Street folks, we've heard from the Wilson Street folks, and now we've heard from the Franklin Street folks. Everybody is disappointed. All those neighbors are disappointed about the solar farm going into it. So I think if we don't address this now, that there's a risk that other neighbors could fall into the same category. So that's my first point about the 2 time sensitive. I think the Legacy North Farms Road is time sensitive because of the busing for the folks on Legacy Farms North, and that's a safety issue as well. So we'd have to balance out safety issues with that one. My second point is that I understand everybody's safety concerns, but we've had COVID for 6 months. We all said we don't know if there's going to be another meeting in next May. Rob, I'm a little disappointed because you got me fired up, kind of changed my mind, and then to hear you say that you wouldn't show up. I think it's like any other town meeting. The people that are interested and wanted to get there to vote will do that if they feel strongly about this. And I think if we don't have this, there's going to be a lot of people disappointed that they didn't have an opportunity to act on this and that we let them down. So I think we're kind of, by pulling it off the warrant, I think we're making our own judgment call and not letting the town vote for it the way we want to. Worst case scenario, there could be a follow-up if people felt strongly and it was voted the wrong way, it could be revoted again on in a year from now or whenever it was. I think there's an opportunity to correct things if for some reason that certain people couldn't get to the town meeting. So the second thing, kind of goes along the point that we can't stop living, right? We've noticed this for 6 months, right? We saw a big change, and maybe it's just my household, but I explained what we were talking to tonight to my wife, and she said, that's crazy not to vote on things. So that kind of set me in the motion that I'm still sticking with what I said, that I feel that those 2 articles should be on the warrant.
Thanks, Dave.
So can I ask for a point of clarification?
Sure.
The Legacy Farms North is not in a part of this discussion. That one is staying on the warrant. We are talking about the zoning articles that we put forward, I
That's
believe.
correct.
So to
Yes.
follow up through the chair, can I follow up on that?
Yes.
So if that's
Go
the
ahead,
case, I would ask, why is that one special versus the solar, right? Why treat one differently than the other? Just a comment.
So through the chair, my point was that it is a safety issue. And it is also not, for me, this is just me, it should be non-controversial. We have all been pulling to get this done, and I expect that it will not bring a lot of people just on one side or the other of that article. But I guess even if it did, I would be in favor of keeping that one because it is a safety concern.
So just from a process perspective to the discussion we just had, the road acceptance is not in our current discussion right now. If somebody wanted to make a motion after this to also withdraw that one, they could. But for now, for this discussion, that's not part of it. But I do just want to quickly comment though, because I've been really torn on the solar overlay in particular as well, because I do think there is some sensitivity here. But at the end of the day, I think two things. Number one, from a timing perspective, it's not opening up a window for a year. The reality is that as soon as we post for a public hearing to discuss a solar overlay, that takes precedent for any other commercial solar special permit applicants that come through. And we can do that in December. So I don't think the exposure is as much as people think it is. At the same time, I think the risk with this article is very high because there are a lot of people that could be affected by it. And I think it's going to drive a lot of people to town meeting. I think it's going to drive a lot of discussion at town meeting. It's going to take a lot of time, and with a lot of people at the mic, with a lot of people at the meeting, and a lot of thoughts on it, that is going to increase the risks that we are trying to avoid. So I acknowledge there's in my opinion anyways that there is some risk. I fully acknowledge that this is a topic that people want to talk about, but I'd also challenge that I don't know if that's if the rewards or the benefit outweigh the risks of putting something on the town meeting warrant that is going to encourage a lot of people to be very vocal and involved in the discussion.
So just one follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please go ahead, Dave.
So I think if we're going to take the approach of safety, that we shouldn't have the meeting at all, because it's judgmental right now. People are thinking, oh, this article might warrant some discussion, this one might not. But if you look at the budgetary articles, I've been to the last 10 town meetings, and there's been a lot of discussion about the budgets and the school budget. So, I mean, I think you should be consistent and not just pick and choose which articles you want on the warrant.
Yeah.
Just my comment.
I think the argument is that the budget needs to be established so that the town can continue to function. And the reality of it is that if we don't move any of these articles forward, the town still continues to function. So, sorry, Fran, go ahead.
So, yes, I think the motion on the floor from Jane is that we're going to make a decision on all of them as a bundle, correct?
That is correct. That was the motion.
The exemption of Legacy Farms.
With the exemption of the legacy fees. I'd like to be able to kind of look at them individually to decide on each particular warrant article, whether or not we want to take no action on it or have it discussed.
I agree, Fran, and I my concern by lumping them all in together is that we kind of risk. I don't know. I think there's some risk that we end up withdrawing none of them, and I think that's a really big problem for us. So, and I realize that this is the motion on the table, But I don't know, Jane, if you would be willing to revise it and if you would be willing to go through and vote on each of these articles independently.
So this is my feeling. First of all, if I can just get a correction or a clarification, maybe from John or you, Gary, it is my understanding from our discussion at the last meeting that any other solar projects that would come before the town would be in the same boat as Seaboard. And if this article that we're proposing, maybe not this meeting, but maybe at the next meeting, or maybe this meeting, I don't know how it's going to turn out, gets accepted, then according to legal's opinion, there's a good chance that none of them will fly. So, I don't understand, what all of the hubbub is about. I mean, we're talking about public safety here and people getting a chance to be infected. And, there's a good chance that this isn't going to fly anyway.
Deb?
Yeah, I totally agree with all the Rob's feeling about not wanting to go, Jane's feeling about it not flying and being a public risk. But I really do have some concerns about the solar one. So, and we voted on them. Was it 1 through 6 as being the ones we could handle quickly, and the solar being the one that we were holding out? My only concern is I would love to push this all back to May. I mean, I would really love to do that. It would give us more time to think and more time to work on our presentation as well. For the solar, however, my feeling is that we're risking a couple things. It's a little more risky than I think Gary may have suggested, although I would love to believe what Gary said. I think we're risking, number one, that Franklin is a done deal. Number two, we're risking that others will jump into the hat and we will be adjudicating under their locations rather quickly before May. And if that is going to be the date of the next meeting, which is hopeful, it's hopeful, maybe 2021 will be a better year. But so there are risks. And the other risk is that we have contractors who are talking about clear cutting their land so that there aren't any woods, so that it makes it appropriate lot for solar in the near present future. So I think there are some immediate questions that are on everybody's mind. And as much as I think we need to put this off, I would love to put this off to a future date, but we don't know that date, and we don't know what other people are going to do in response to not having this decided.
Yep.
And so that's just my concern.
Yeah. So I'll go back to my question to Jane, because again, the motion that's on the table is to vote on these all together. Do you want to continue to vote on them all together, Jane, or would you be willing to consider breaking them out and voting on them one by one?
Well, I would like to really show unity and partnership with the rest of the town boards and committees. The school committee withdrew all of their articles. My understanding is everything that's going before the town, with the exception of legacy, is purely financial and to keep the town going. I think we do have to look at the bigger picture of public safety and trying to keep our people safe. I mean, when you look at it, most of
The chair, process interruption. I think it's a yes or no question.
Sorry.
Excuse me.
Dave, let her finish.
But
Okay, it's a yes or no question.
Okay, thank you.
most of the people who show up are senior citizens, and they're at the most risk. And I just want to think of
Yep,
that.
understood. So Jane, so you want to continue with all of them grouped into one?
Yes.
Okay. All
I
right.
have a comment, please, through the chair.
Go ahead, Dave.
So I would suggest for those of us that want to vote on them individually, that we vote no on this motion and raise another motion.
And that's an option. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Gary, this through the chair, Rob. This is kind of an impossible situation to be in, and I've spent a lot of time thinking it. I even put some thoughts down on paper of like what we're trying to be asked to do. In Massachusetts, in the Commonwealth, our governor has restricted outdoor gatherings to 50 people, but there's a special exemption for town meetings. So something like zoning just is going to draw, like, there's nothing that like the solar overlay district. I would definitely be at the town meeting. I would speak at the microphone. So I have to make a personal decision of my safety and the safety of people around me that I interact with versus how I want to impact potentially a vote. And it's a totally unfair situation. I very disenfranchised that we can't do this through technology and do we do our meetings, but I understand the complexities with that, with the town meeting and people being able to speak and other people being able to hear them. And it's just an impossible situation. So if you think it's so cut and dry, like, I really would ask you to think again. And it's like, if we put stuff forward to the town at the town meeting, it's only people that are going to go that have such strong feelings one way or another that they're going to risk their health and safety. Like, normally, if you had something about like zoning or solar, you'd have tons of people going, but it's only going to be the most interested that are going to go because they have such a vested interest. Think about it. If it was your child in school, like, you'd risk maybe your health for something impacting their schooling, whereas you wouldn't if it was some other zoning related thing. So it's not an easy situation, and I think we need to consider that just because we have it on the warrant, it's only going to be the people on either side that have the most vested interest in it that are going to go. So it's going to be this impacted process because of the safety concerns.
Thanks, Rob. Muriel.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I make the point that you made earlier, but make sure everybody is keeping it in mind. What we're voting for is to move no action. The articles are actually on the warrant. They will be available for discussion at town meeting. Just because we move no action, people could still show up and argue to take action. I just want to make that really clear. So what we're trying to do here is maybe minimize the work and the likelihood that a lot of people come out, and I know that we're all committed to the articles we put forward, and we will put them forward again. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that it's still possible that people will show up and want to speak to these articles.
Thanks, Muriel. Okay. All right. I think we're almost ready for a vote, but Sundar, go ahead.
Through the chair, I just wanted to ask a clarifying question to what Muriel just said. Is the point then that even if we make any kind of decision right now to pull stuff from the warrant, it will not get communicated to the townsfolk?
So just to be clear, the warrant has already been voted upon. So when we discussed this last week, we could have actually removed articles from the warrant.
But we did not.
The warrant is now voted on and established, but we still have the opportunity to recommend taking no action, which hopefully will signal that this is not something we want to discuss at this town meeting, not something that we're endorsing. And given that we sponsor the articles, usually an article in which the sponsor recommends no action doesn't generate a lot of discussion.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes, Dave.
Sorry, I just wanted to elaborate a little bit what Muriel was saying also, because I want to understand that like Sundar does. So is it possible that if we vote to not support these articles, that people could show up and vote one way or the other and we wouldn't have any input to it?
So we still have the opportunity for input. It just doesn't have our stamp of approval on it that goes with the recommendation.
So just a point of clarification, it's not
Yes,
really
please.
approval or disapproval. The motion is to move no action. So we're encouraging the voters to vote yes, to not take action on it this time. And certainly we have the potential to bring it back at a future town meeting. It's not really an approval or disapproval motion. We're not pulling anything. We're not adding anything. We're not saying yes. We're not saying no. We're taking a position here tonight that we are encouraging people to not take action on this item at this time. And part of my comment was, I think it's very clear that this planning board is very interested in responsibly limiting where solar farms can go, commercial solar farms can go with regards to residential properties. And we can still do that in the future. But I just wanted people to know that people could come and oppose that motion, right? If we vote to move no action, and we all agree by majority vote, people can still come to town meeting and argue to take action. So as a point of certainty, we should be prepared to speak to any of these articles if that happens.
So through the chair, I guess I think we're going to answer to my question though. Can something like voting for solar district could at that meeting, it could come up for a vote, correct?
Yes.
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 So that's a huge gap to me.
Yes.
Through the chair, it's going to come up to a vote to just accept no action. It's going to come to a vote no matter what.
That's not what I understand.
No, if we recommend no action, the people at the meeting will still have to basically say yes or no. They'll be voted to agree with no action or not.
Right. And if a majority of people vote no, when we move no action, if a majority of people in attendance vote no, then the article is up for a vote at that point.
So to Dave's
Our
point,
motion has failed and there's room for another motion. They would need to be prepared with a motion.
so just to clarify for everyone, so it is still possible that this article could have discussion and it could still get voted on the town meeting floor.
Just want to make sure
we're not withdrawing it. We're not eliminating any discussion. There could still be discussion.
Through the chair, just another clarification. So I'm sure everyone knows here, I just want to say it. With zoning, you need a 2/3 majority vote to approve the motion at town meeting. So if certain things then on the zoning docket don't get approved, they cannot come before a town meeting for 2 years unless there are material changes. So if something comes up, if we keep going with some of these zoning articles, put them on the warrant, keep them on warrant, make a recommendation, and they get voted down, they can't be brought forward again for 2 years. Just something to consider.
But just to clarify, if we recommend no action, then they can be brought forward.
Correct. However, if the board recommended no action, somebody made a motion to keep it on, and then it doesn't make the 2/3 majority, then that would be something that wouldn't be then allowed for 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from the
This
board?
is
And
Mary.
I should go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I'm sorry. There's no way for me to raise my hand that I can figure out. So I lost connection for just a little bit in the discussion, and it sounds like we are still considering these as a block, all the zoning articles, not the road acceptance article. And if that is the case, then I feel strongly about removing from this town meeting all of the articles other than the solar farm overlay. But if we're voting on them as a block, I'll have to vote no because of that, because they're all together.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. So
I do have an important question through the chair.
of course, Dave.
Thank you. Sorry, Gary. But just a question of how are they gonna have a quorum at this meeting?
At town meeting,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like 100-something people. There's a certain
Um,
number they have to meet.
they have reduced the quorum. I think they
Okay.
reduced it to 90,
80.
I believe, 80.
80.
They reduced it to 80.
How can they just reduce it like that?
They took a vote.
Because our government is giving special privileges to try and reduce
Okay.
risk, and not put requirements in place that endanger people for a town meeting. And I think that's a great example of the extraordinary lengths that people are going to try to minimize the risk of infection at these types of events, and to
Okay.
keep them focused on things that are required to allow our government to move forward.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. So and I should just say, and I apologize, I think there's somebody from the public that wants to make a comment. We're actually not taking public comments at this, and we're not obligated to. So we've had a lot of hearings on this, a lot of discussion. So but I know you'd like to say something, but at this point we're not taking public comment. All right, so let's move to a roll call vote. In light of no further discussion, so Gary Trendle, yes. Dave,
Dave Paul, no.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Fran,
Fran DeYoung, no.
Rob,
Rob Betson, yes.
Deb,
Deb Feinberg, no.
Sundar.
Apologies, I have to ask, are we voting on no action for the entire?
We're voting on no action for the full set of zoning articles.
Sundar Sivaraman, yes.
Mary
Larson Marlowe, no.
and Muriel.
Muriel Kramer, yes.
Okay, so that's 5 yes votes, and that is 4 no votes. So we will be recommending no action on the set of those 7 zoning articles.
The point of clarity through the chair.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that Sundar knew what he was voting for. There was a bunch of us that were voting no, so that we can raise another motion to vote them individually, and we've lost that possibility. I just want to make sure he was aware that's what he was voting for.
The board can reconsider that vote if Sundar or somebody else was unclear on that.
So
Sundar,
through the
are you
chair,
clear on what you
my
voted on?
understanding was that, by doing a no action on the entire set, we are including even the solar in that, correct?
Yes. So effectively with that vote, we're recommending no action on all 7 zoning articles, including the solar overlay article.
And that would also include the legacy farm road acceptance, correct?
No, it does not include that because that's not a zoning article.
Okay.
So we are at this point we are supportive of the Legacy Farms North road acceptance, and we are recommending no action on the remaining 7 planning board articles.
Right. Okay. I'm comfortable. I would.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I have a question for John. John, so if the town goes ahead and votes and we have sort of a rowdy vote that doesn't accept our no vote for no action, and somehow they come up with a 3/4 vote one way or another, we cannot bring up solar as it is worded, or can we bring up solar districting in other ways as far as a zoning article change?
So my understanding for that would be if there are material changes to the article, which I would believe would be changes to the map, that would be allowed within 2 years. If you're making changes to an article such as the car washes in the downtown business district,
No.
I don't know how that would really change materially to be brought back within 2 years.
Okay.
But I believe
What's
the
that?
solar
That
one,
makes me, yeah, that makes me feel a little better. Yeah.
the solar one, I believe would be a material change. I'm not 100% sure on that, but if so, let me put it this way: if it was voted down, they raised another motion, it was voted down, and then the board wanted to reintroduce the exact same map with the exact same language, that would be not allowed. But if there was changes to it, material changes to it, then it would likely be allowed. I would guess,
Okay, thank
because
you.
changes to the map and change because the parcels themselves are what the changes are. So if there are changes to that, I would assume that would be material changes.
Great, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, I will. I appreciate everyone's flexibility here. I will now entertain a motion to. Oh,
I have a quick question.
yes, Muriel.
I believe it would be helpful to be prepared with a motion for that solar article in case the move no action fails.
Point of order. So what Muriel is suggesting is that we have sort of another card in our hand, and
Yes.
that, and but then at that point, if we have a card in our hand that we want to move to include it,
We would not necessarily be moving it, Deb, but we would have it prepared so that hopefully it wouldn't get messy.
okay.
Or just to have it prepared for whoever, whatever member of the public wanted to make a motion to take action on it.
Yep. Okay.
Through the chair, one last comment. Even with the solar article, even with the move no action, members of the public can still go to the microphone, say what they're going to say. They have their 3 minutes, and try to go one way or another to basically kind of on the side of move no action, or basically say let's bring this for discussion. So
That's
it's
true.
going to be, there are people that are going to show up that are going to discuss it in one way or another.
That's true.
Through
Okay.
the chair.
Yes, Sundar.
So if we are saying no action and people vote for it, doesn't that essentially mean people have another chance in the near future to vote on this? I mean, we are not taking away any opportunities from them to speak about this or have an opinion or vote on this. Isn't that correct?
So it depends on how things progress at town meeting. So and it depends on whether the article is brought forward for discussion after the vote on taking no action. So it still could come up for discussion, and people still could have some debate about it, and it still could be pulled to a vote. Our hope is that, again, as the sponsor of the article is recommending no action, that a lot of people in town will support that and want to not have a discussion around the article itself. Clear? Does it make sense, Sundar?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Deb?
I have a question. So if they're only allowing 80 people in,
Nope. That's the quorum. That's the minimum number of people that we have to have
minimum
there
number.
in order to start the meeting.
Can you tell me a little bit about how, I think you mentioned you heard how it was going to be laid out? Just so I can get a little bit better about going.
I don't have details yet.
Oh, okay.
We have a 2-hour conference call tomorrow morning in which I will be learning more. And I fully expect that there will be some other communications from the town as to what it looks like and what it's going to entail. All I know is that it's going to be held under a tent in front of the high school.
But through the chair, they cannot restrict anyone that wants to be part of town meeting.
That's true. They cannot restrict. So they have to be able to accommodate a broad range of people. Hence the reason they really wanted to see us withdraw these from the warrant last week, because they have to be prepared to accommodate everyone that shows up, and also ensure distancing and masks and general public safety. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone again making time on short notice. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Rob Benson, so moved.
Is there a
Young,
second?
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Gary Trendle, yes. Dave Paul,
First of all, thanks for mitigating this, Gary, and I vote yes.
Jane,
Jane Moran, yes.
Fran,
Randy Young, yes.
Deb,
Deborah Feinberg, yes. And welcome, Fran.
Muriel,
Real Kramer, yes.
Sundar.
Sundar Subramanian, yes, and welcome, Fran.
Oh, I thought Gary was the only one who could say welcome to Fran.
And Rob. Oh, not. Oh, actually, Mary's gone.
Rob Benson, yes. Adjourned.
Okay. Fran, welcome back. It's like you never left.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Looking forward to the next year.
Fran, you are a Troop 1 dad, right? Fran?
In the past. In
All
the
right.
past, I was a Troop 1 dad.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I know you. Yeah, so am I. So
Through the chair, we're not meeting before the town meeting, so is that true?
We did put a placeholder on the calendar. I don't think we've communicated that yet. Just in case we chose to meet, but at this point we have no plans to meet again prior to the town meeting.
I have a question.
So sorry, we've adjourned the meeting, so we shouldn't have any more discussion with this group. So I apologize, but we'll go ahead and end the discussion there. So thanks everyone. Have a good weekend.
thank you,
everybody.
And we'll see you again soon.
Welcome.
You know,